So, phew, every time I get a topic like this or I think about idol worshipping, it always comes back to how ingrained religion is in our psyche. Like, it permeates everything from the expressions we use, from even like certain superstitions we still hold on to. And, idol worship is, something that early on humanity realized early on that idol worshipping was a bad idea because people put faith in things that they cannot prove. But you know what the solution was to that? Create an intangible, imperceivable, uh, uh, all powerful entity that's everywhere all the time, watching what you do, and then forcing other people to believe in that instead of idol worship. That was their brilliant solution. And look how much good it's brought us, really. Idol worship is something that I honestly believe idol worship is one of those factors that created civilization. Because really, think about it. The moment human beings develop language and more abstract thoughts and more abstract means of dividing power, right? Creating means of power and then dividing it, and then further stratifying it down the line. And idol worship is still a huge factor in how we perceive reality itself. Every child is taught to respect their elders, respect authority, respect the religion, respect their parents, and you can't even ask why. You can't even ask why because you'll probably be beaten into submission for it, or shamed, or just aggressively bullied into submission for even asking why to begin with. That's why so many people hold on to religion so violently the way they do, because they were never allowed to ask those questions to begin with. They were never allowed to explore different possibilities in their own minds. They just had an idol imposed on them. Yeah, even the fucking, god damn it, even the freaking Abrahamic religions themselves, they are permeated with idol worship. They really truly are. And the more you read into the history, even in development of Islam or Judaism or Christianity, it is, once you see it, it's never gonna go away. That's why I truly believe there's no way I'd ever uh, practice organized religion again, because it's one of those fatal flaws that once you see it, you cannot, unless you truly lie to yourself and deceive yourself and are just in a vulnerable state of mind. If you've deprogrammed yourself from organized religion, you truly can't go back once you've realized just how much idol worship is everywhere. It's everywhere, especially in the religions that claim to forbid idol worship, to get against idol worship, right? Because what is an idol really? Is it not a symbol of power? Is it not? That's ultimately what it is. An idol is a symbol of power, and human beings create these idols to harness the power they think these idols have. It's such a backwards mentality, because you can't tell me a monotheistic religion that also depends on symbols like the cross, uh yeah, particularly the cross, and depictions of Jesus himself, and yet literally the first commandment is do not make any graven images. And the painting, a statue of Jesus, a sculpture of Jesus, is literally a graven image. First commandment broken right there. You'd think Yahweh would be so vehemently pissed at that, but he bends the rules, I guess, sometimes, or people can bend the rules and nothing happens to them. And within Islam, the black stone, the Kaaba, is it, it's always so funny pointing out how, like, why exactly, why exactly do you need this particular point of reference to to worship a god that's everywhere all at the same time, right? Okay, you can say holiest site, this or that. Yeah, okay. But once you've read into it, and especially even within Judaism, I haven't read too as much into it as I would have liked to. Uh, but at least knowing the prehistory of Judaism and knowing how it most likely was influenced by Canaanite polytheism, which had a lot of idol worship, by the way, and uh, even literally the first story of creation, the first book, Genesis, contradicts itself within the first few chapters of having two different creation stories written in two different ways, probably by two or more different people for entirely different reasons. How was that able to get past so many humans' eyes, if not for indoctrination? If not for the fact that you were taught that this is the beginning of everything and you can't question it, or you'll burn in hell. That to me, idol worship doesn't necessarily mean like a physical uh a physical statue, although yeah, usually it is, because the modern day idol worship is on social media. It's okay, celebrities have always been around, and in fact I think the concept of celebrities influenced religion and influenced certain religious figures as well. People became such a larger than life figures that they became mythical and then they became divine. I think it's happened several different times throughout history. And it is nothing but poison, because it's one reason why I like talking about, especially when it comes to things like disability. People don't think disability is in their future or in their present or as a possibility, but it is for every single human being. And the older you get, the higher the chances of you living with disability. What's it called? I think it's called years lived with disability. It's an actual metric. Every human has those years of disability, and you can't really tell whether it's going to happen when you're much older. It could happen when you're much younger for a number of reasons, and they affect your quality of life overall. This is why I don't idolize myself physically. I love myself. I literally love myself. Yes. I don't idolize myself because I think all the time, if my face didn't look the way it did, if my arms, my legs, if my body didn't work the way that it did, and I was somehow impaired, how would that affect my self-esteem? Because I have seen how it has affected people, how it affected people's self-esteem. People who depended on their physical appearance as a means of confidence. And that's not a bad thing. But in this reality, everybody's looking to tear you down for whatever possible reason they can. It's a reason why, like, narcissism has become such a pandemic. It's literally a pandemic now. I'm glad they brought the word pandemic into the common usage, because in terms of humanity, there's a spectrum of narcissism, and there is, in fact, healthy narcissism, which is, having a good self-esteem of yourself, having a good opinion of your own self is technically narcissism. It is healthy narcissism, right? But it can get more and more toxic and self-absorbed to the point where you literally believe that you're God. But that emerges from a false identity that you will never touch, you will never reach, and it will never exist. That is what narcissism ultimately derives from. It is an idol worship. It is the most clinically identifiable form of idol worship that we can say exists. That is what narcissism is. People make idols all the damn time. Religious people make idols all the damn time. And it's one reason why narcissists thrive in religion so much. Because they literally believe that they were the ones who wrote, they reincarnated themselves and they wrote the Bible so that people just hear it out of their mouths and their mouths alone. You see the pastors who talk with such incredible conviction, and yet at some point they get discovered doing some like disorderly conduct or just something, just really dubious actions, right? People who claim to have this monopoly on morality, and yet they themselves don't adhere to that morality. So what is it that they're making us do that they can't adhere to? You can really say so many things are idols. Money is literally an idol. Fame is an idol. You know, the the concept of lust itself, while it pertains to sex, it can be a lust for anything. Lust itself, it becomes, well, let me not say lust itself, because we're fed a lot of misinformation and disinformation about our own existence as sentient beings, as sexual sentient beings. And it's a means to control, like, to control another person's sexual energies, to control their entire existence. And if you can get them to repress their own energy themselves, then literally you have a hold of that person for the rest of their existence on this planet. So I'm not here. I don't demonize lust. We have to, we it's one part about really accepting ourselves and integrating these different parts of our own beings that have been compartmentalized by the decades of brainwashing that we've been subjected to. Learning to accept that you exist, and that's literally enough. You existing is literally enough, and once you operate from that, you know that you have nothing else to prove because you simply exist. There's nothing anybody can say that will trigger you or disappoint you or make you overly happy. you know it's one reason why the people who preach the hardest against idol worship push their own idols in front of your face so that you can keep them as another idol. Why do cults form so easily, and why do they gain so many people in a relatively short amount of time? We have been pre-programmed to look for idols. We've been pre-programmed to worship these idols, worship the billionaires, worship the movie stars, the actors, the singers, uh, you know, worship worship money itself to the point that you need to do anything you possibly can to get as much of it as possible. Now we have literal billionaire preachers selling selling their congregation the dream that, you know, God wants them to have as much money as possible. God wants them to be rich. God wants them to have all of it. And yet, the whole New Testament was constantly preaching against, in fact, even the Old Testament to some degree. But the New Testament in particular was preaching against riches, against a rich man, against the fact that you cannot serve God and money. I think, what was the word? Yeah, the word was mammon. And I think mammon was like a demon or like a pagan god or something that symbolized money, but same thing, right? How is it that you can't serve both of them, but yet God wants you to worship Him and then He'll give you all the money in the world? Like, I keep telling you, man, like Satan he's been just constantly shooting 3-pointers. Like it's so easy, you know? He doesn't even have to try anymore. Are you kidding me? This is what the preachers are. This is what the preachers are saying to people. This is what people are buying into now. Don't get me started about how like tithing, right? Giving the church your monthly part of your monthly salary, or even just offering, is a form of protection money. It's like racketeering, like, the mafia, like coming to your corner store every week for like that protection money. That's literally the same thing the churches do, to be honest, like in a spiritual sense. But I'm so glad I don't really see idols. I don't even see myself as something or someone to idolize necessarily. I don't know if you watch Christopher Sedaris's channel. He's so funny. He's so funny in his presentation, and the things he says are so, they seem so obvious to most, to I would think, to most people, but I guess they're not. He talks a lot about how everyone is just a scripted avatar, and really it makes so much sense, because what does it mean to act like yourself? Who is yourself? And if you don't act like yourself, is that some sort of sin? Do I need to act like myself at all times? Are you idol worshiping yourself to the point where people know, oh yeah, he does this all the time and he's like that, he says this all the time, and you cannot move out of that box? It's weird to me how our identities themselves are a form. There's something we hold on so freaking dearly to, and I said before that your identity is just a means. It's a tool. It's a tool for you to be able to interact with this world as best as you can. It's not you. It is you, but it's not you. I mean, you're a fragment of the energy that exists in this tiny corner of the universe. That is you. That is you. And how really can you encapsulate all that, if not to give yourself a name and a personality? So I personally, I think people are in different stages of their life at any given point. And idols, you can learn from them. You can learn from everybody. You can learn from idols too. You can learn why they were drawn the way they were drawn, or sculpted the way they were sculpted, or why certain idol images are so pervasive, right? Like the Virgin Mary, or even the monarchy to some degree. I mean, literally last week, or the whole of the past 2 weeks, you had grown adults across the world crying because some older hag finally kicked the bucket and she just happened to be on the throne. Really, they won't even cry for somebody who lost their child in the next town over, but they'll cry for the queen. It's such a cognitive dissonance that people have allowed themselves to believe in. You know, this is why I always stress that you have to a good amount of self-talk is a key factor in understanding in figuring out this fucking universe, in figuring out this fucking reality, or at least figuring out a way to navigate through this reality in the most sane way possible. I don't have anything against somebody talking to themselves. I talk to myself all the fucking time, especially these days. They don't want you to talk to yourself because they don't want you to give yourself a second opinion. You always have to get a second opinion from like a sanctioned source or an outside source, and that source themselves probably doesn't even know themselves. You know? Though it is good to be open to criticism, to be open to that level of discovery, and yeah, you can reject it, of course. Like, I don't say these things as like a Ten Commandments type thing. I just say it as, if you actually want to figure out how to move uh through this reality in the most energy efficient way possible, you're going to have to learn how to learn from other people. That means even, I I I despise religion. I don't despise religious people. I recognize them as victims of circumstance. And I recognize a lot of them are genuinely good-hearted people. They're sold this false spirituality to uh give them again a false purpose and a false identity to keep them conformed, but they still go out their way to help people in other communities and other religions, people with no religions, right? Because they see it as their duty to mankind. And those kinds of religious people, I truly have respect for them. Especially the ones who lived by their word. It's not just like they flare up religion when it suits them and the rest of the time they live like a degenerate. But yeah, this was a really good topic. Thanks for the suggestion. I'm definitely probably gonna make another part someday, focusing on particular idols that I really despise.